If you play medieval games or read fantasy books, there is a chance that you've come across a strange set of ghostly lights known as Willow the Wisps. More often than not, these are referred to as some sort of sprite. However, in Latin they call it ignis fatuus, meaning foolish fire. And that's because the fire was not real, just an illusion. And yet, they are just as deadly as they are beautiful. Willow the Wisps are very simple apparitions. They appear as balls of light, sometimes so bright that they hurt your eyes, and other times so dim that you can barely see them. And although they are typically recognised as blue in colour, they're also known to be red and orange in some cases. To further add on to this, they're typically seen lingering around bogs, marshes, swamps, and in some rare cases, the deepest, most hidden parts of a forest. Willow the Wisps appear in Europe's written record around the 13th century, but their legend was well known all across the world long before pen was put to paper. The oral traditions of Cornish, Nordic, and the Aborigine people warn against the dangers of these strange phantom lights. A light floating in the darkness might seem pretty innocent, even friendly, but don't let these enchanting globes deceive you. These pretty lights are almost always malevolent. They lead travellers onto dangerous land, perhaps a deep hole in a bog, or a kingdom ruled by vicious fairies where the traveller will most certainly meet their doom. Willow the Wisps are considered to be powerful omens. They appear to be able to predict the future, appearing to people before their death or flocking to the site of a tragedy before it takes place. To some lucky few, they may also reveal the place where a thief or a fairy has buried their golden treasure. The backstory of these strange ghostly lights tend to differ depending on various cultures, but they can shed some light on their cruel nature. The lights are allegedly carried by spirits who are shut out of both heaven and hell. The classic Willow the Wisp is carried by a blacksmith named Will. Will was such a troublemaker. When he died and went to heaven, he was sent back by St. Peter, who told him to reform during his second life. Unfortunately, Will's second life was even more monstrous than his first, so St. Peter cursed him to roam the earth forever. The devil was impressed by Will's evil doing and gave him coal to warm himself on the cold earth nights. Instead, Will decided to use that coal to make a torch and lure innocent and unsuspecting travellers further into danger. The jack-o'-lantern is carried by a drunkard named Jack. Jack sold his soul to the devil so that the devil would pay his pub tab. When the devil returned from the pub to collect Jack's soul, the man tricked him into climbing a tree, and then drew a cross beneath the tree, trapping the furious devil in its branches. Later, when Jack died and was rejected at heaven's gates, he had to beg the devil for a place in hell. The devil was delighted at his chance to get revenge, and he cursed Jack to wander the earth with only a small flame for light. Jack put his flame in a carved turnip and began to use it as a lantern. In other places, goblins, pixies, witches, and unbaptized children, even the devil, are blamed for carrying these dangerous lights. Numerous places have encountered them, one such place being the St. Louis Light in Canada. This appeared on the TV show Unsolved Mysteries, and includes a strange light moving up and down in an old abandoned rail line at night, changing colours and varying brightness. The line, located south of Prince Albert and north of St. Louis, has had its tracks removed, but the phenomenon still occurs on a regular basis. Several stories attempt to explain the lights, including there is a ghost train, or the ghost of a drunk brakeman who lost his head to a passing train and now wanders up and down the tracks with a lantern attempting to find it. In 2014, Canada Post issued a stamp depicting the St. Louis ghost train, one of a series of 5 depicting Canadian ghost tales. The Spooklite, also called the Hornet Spooklite, Hollis Light, and the Joplin Spooklite, is a light that appears in a small area known locally as the Devil's Promenade. It's situated on the border between the southwestern Missouri and northeastern Oklahoma, west of the small town of Hornet, Missouri. Even though it's named after a small, unincorporated community in Missouri, from which it's most commonly reached, the light is mostly described as being visible from inside the Oklahoma border looking to the west. The Spooklite is described as a single ball of light, or a tight grouping of lights that is said to appear in the area regularly, usually at night. Although the description of the light is similar to that of any other visual phenomena witnessed throughout the world, the term Spooklite, when standing alone, generally refers to the specific case. Numerous legends exist that attempt to describe the origin of the Spooklite, one of which involves the ghosts of 2 young Native American lovers looking for each other. According to most accounts, it has appeared continually since the late 19th century, although it was generally not well known to anyone but the locals after the World War II. Some date the first encounters with the light back to the Trail of Tears in 1830. However, the first documented sighting is generally accepted to have occurred in 1881, although some report sightings as far as back as 1866. The earliest published report was in 1936 in the Kansas City Star. In 1946, the US Army Corps of Engineers supposedly studied the Hornet Light, but could not find a cause for it. In their words, it was a mysterious light of unknown origin. Early residents of the area reported seeing lights in the wood, over the land, and even in their yards. During the 1960s, there was a general store in Hornet that gave out information about the light to sightseers. It included a Spooklight museum. There have also been various establishments along Missouri-Oklahoma state line that served a similar function, but they have since been closed. During the 1960s and the 1970s, the roads where the Spooklight usually appeared were often packed with parked vehicles and people hoping to get a glimpse of the mysterious light. The Martha Lights, also known as the Martha Ghost Lights, have been observed near the US Route 67 on Mitchell Flat east coast of Martha in the United States. They have gained some fame as onlookers have attributed them to paranormal phenomena, such as ghosts, UFOs, or Willow the Wisp. Scientific research suggests that most, if not all, are just atmospheric reflections of automobile headlights and campfires. According to Judith Brusque, the Martha Lights of West Texas have been called many names over the years, such as ghost lights, weird lights, mystery lights, or the Shinati lights. The favourite place from which to view the lights is a widened shoulder on the Highway 90, about 9 miles east of Martha. Naga fireballs, also known as the Mekong Lights, and formerly ghost lights, are a phenomenon said to be seen annually on the Mekong River. Glowing balls are alleged to naturally rise from the water high into the air. The balls are said to be reddish and range from a size smaller than sparkles up to the size of basketballs. They quickly rise up to a couple of 100 meters before disappearing, and the number of fireballs reported varies between tens and thousands per night. This strange phenomena is locally attributed to the Fayanak. It is a giant serpent that is said to live in the Mekong River. The Hessdalen Lights are unexplained lights observed in a 12-kilometre stretch of the Hessdalen Valley in rural central Norway. The Hessdalen Lights are of unknown origin, and they are said to appear both by day and by night, and seem to float through and above the valley. They are usually bright white, yellow or red, and can appear above and below the horizon. The duration of the phenomenon may be a few seconds to well over an hour. Sometimes the lights move with an enormous speed, whereas other times they seem to slowly sway back and forth. On yet other occasions, they hover in mid-air. Unusual lights have been reported in the region since at least the 1930s. Especially high activity occurred between December 1981 and mid-1984, during which the lights were being observed 15 to 20 times a week, attracting many overnight tourists who arrived for a sighting. As of 2010, the number of observations has dwindled, with only 10 to 20 sightings made yearly. The Paulding Light, also called the Lights of Paulding or Dog Meadow Light, is a light that appears in a valley outside of Paulding in Michigan. Reports of the light have appeared since the 1960s, with popular folklore providing such explanations as ghosts, geologic activity, or swamp gas. In 2010, Sci-Fi Channel's Fact or Faked Paranormal Files, they conducted a paranormal investigation and concluded that the Paulding Light was still very much unexplained. The first recorded sighting of the Paulding Light was in 1966, when a group of teenagers reported the light to the local sheriff. Since then, a number of other individuals have reported seeing the mysterious light, which is said to appear nearly every night at the same site. Although stories related to the light vary, the most popular legend involves the death of a railroad brakeman. The legend states that the valley once contained railroad tracks, and the light is the lantern of the brakeman who was killed while attempting to stop an oncoming train from colliding with the railway cars stopped on the tracks. Another story claims that the light is the ghost of a slain mail courier, while another says it is the ghost of an Indian dancing along the power lines that run through the valley. According to John Carlyle of the Detroit Free Press, one legend is that it is a grandparent looking for a lost grandchild with a lantern that needs to be constantly relit, which is why the light seems to come and go. Interestingly enough, Willow the Wisp phenomenons have been existing all around the globe since people could remember. Mexico has two equivalents: Colombia, Trinidad, Bangladesh, India, even Japan all have variations of Willow the Wisps that continue to exist to this day. In European folklore, some groups believe that Willow the Wisp also marked a location of treasure deep in ground or water, which could only be taken when the fire was there. Sometimes magical tricks and even dead man's hand were required as well to uncover the treasure. Some popular movies, books, and even games have wisps featured in them. One of which is the movie Brave, where the main character Merida spots some Willow the Wisps that lead her to a witch's hut, which inevitably connects her to her fate. Wisps have always been seen and mentioned in World of Warcraft as deceased spirits of night elves, and that they have now become one with the forest. In Lord of the Rings, the Willow the Wisps are present in the dead marshes outside of Mordor. This is when Frodo and Sam are told by the creature Gollum not to follow the lights, meaning Willow the Wisps. He tells them that if they do, they will keep the dead company and have little candles of their own. And to those of you that know Harry Potter, they will have inevitably heard of the Hinky Punk, which is a name for the Willow the Wisp in southwest of England. This was featured as a one-legged, frail-looking creature that appears to be made of smoke, and it is said to carry a lantern and mislead travellers. Until next time, my little obscurities, don't sleep too light, or the creatures might bite.